the top of the world, where the air itself refuses to let you breathe, where every step turns into a fight, and every second could be your last. Spring 1963, the height of the Cold War. While the United States and the Soviet Union race for dominance in space, a group of American climbers sets their sights on a different frontier, Everest. But instead of taking the well-known route, they choose one that no human has ever dared to follow, the West Ridge, the path of no return. This isn't a story about victory. It's about the people who paid for one step higher with their fingers, their memories, and maybe even their sanity. This is Everest, the West Ridge. 1963, Everest or death. May 29th, 1953. Two men stand on the roof of the world. Edmund Hillary, a beekeeper from New Zealand, and Tenzing Norgay, a Sherpa from Nepal, the first to ever reach the summit. In just 24 hours, their photo circles the globe. Britain celebrates, Hillary is knighted, Tenzing becomes a hero across Asia. The world holds its breath, awed by the moment. But this is only the beginning. A decade later, everything has changed. 1963. The Cold War is at full throttle. The US and the USSR aren't just rivals anymore. They're locked in a battle for every symbol of supremacy. Space, sports, science, culture, everything becomes a battlefield. The Soviets send Gagarin into orbit. America answers with the Apollo program. Every move demands a counterstrike. And then, someone in Washington realizes something impossible to ignore. No American flag has ever stood on the highest point on Earth. Unacceptable. The US government launches an expedition. Officially, the goal is simple: to place an American on Everest. Unofficially, to prove that America can do what no one else can. The budget is massive. The press gets exclusive access. National Geographic sends a film crew. This isn't just mountaineering, it's a national mission. But there's one decision that changes everything. The Americans refuse to take the same route Hillary climbed. They choose the West Ridge, a path no one has ever completed. No trails, no camps, no chance to turn back. Only sheer ice walls, hanging ridges, and air too thin to breathe. Why? Because being first no longer matters. Being the first to do the impossible, that's something else entirely. October 1962. The Cuban Missile Crisis pushes the world to the edge of nuclear disaster. For 13 days, humanity balances between survival and annihilation. Soviet missiles in Cuba, American ships at sea, a finger hovering over the red button. Nikita Khrushchev and John Kennedy play a deadly game of chess, the prize, the future of civilization. The crisis ends, the missiles are withdrawn, but the tension never really fades. By the spring of 1963, the world lives in a new kind of war. Everyone understands a direct conflict would destroy everything. But the competition doesn't stop. It just changes shape. Now, the superpowers fight through achievements. Who goes faster, higher, farther? Who can prove their dominance without firing a single shot? The Soviets lead in space. Yuri Gagarin becomes the face of their triumph. Valentina Tereshkova is preparing to become the first woman in orbit. America is falling behind, and it needs a win, fast. And then, someone remembers Everest. A committee gathers in Washington. Around the table, government officials, members of the National Geographic Society, leaders of mountaineering clubs. The goal sounds simple: organize an expedition that will rival the Soviets' triumphs in space. The funding is generous, about $400,000, a staggering amount for that time, more than the budget of many scientific programs. The press is told to follow every move. National Geographic sends a full crew to Nepal: reporters, photographers, cameramen, an entire media army. America needs heroes, real, living ones, faces people can see on television. But there's one problem. Everest has already been conquered. Hillary and Tenzing did it a decade ago. Just repeating their route won't cut it. It would look like chasing someone else's glory. They need something bigger, something that will make the world stop and gasp. And then, someone says it: the West Ridge. It's a route on the western side of the mountain. No one has ever made it to the top that way. And for good reason. It's practically suicidal. Sheer rock faces, walls of ice, stretches where one wrong move means falling more than 1,000 meters straight down. But that's exactly what makes it perfect. If the Americans can climb the West Ridge, they won't just reach the summit. They'll prove they can do what no one else dares to try. Everest stops being just a mountain. It becomes a battlefield, not for land, not for resources, but for the right to be called the strongest. The Soviets conquer space. America will conquer the most dangerous wall on Earth. Ideology seeps even into the thin air above 8,000 meters. The mountain becomes a symbol. Every step upward isn't just a test of endurance. It's a statement of superiority, one system against another. And the team knows. There's no turning back now. Failure up here would mean defeat down there, in the cold, silent war where no shots are fired, but losses last forever. Norman Dyrenforth doesn't look like the kind of man you'd expect to lead a national mission to Everest. He's 46, born in Switzerland, raised among the Alps, and only became an American citizen as an adult. His voice carries a hint of an accent. He smiles often, he never raises his tone. When he's named expedition leader, people start asking questions. Dyrenforth is undeniably experienced, a seasoned climber who's summited some of the toughest peaks on the planet. But his leadership style, it's soft. Too soft for what's ahead. He doesn't give orders. He suggests. He doesn't insist. He invites discussion. He believes every climber should make their own choices. Climbers aren't soldiers, he says at one of the team meetings before departure. I won't dictate who goes where. Everyone decides what they're capable of. It sounds noble, democratic, in a way perfectly American. But at 8,000 meters, democracy can become a problem. The team has 19 members, all of them world-class professionals. James Whitaker, strong, confident, a mountain guide from Seattle. Tom Hornbein, a doctor and climber, quiet, thoughtful, philosophical. Willie Unsold, blunt, tough, allergic to compromise. Barry Bishop, National Geographic's photographer, the kind of man who will risk his life for a single shot. And Lute Gjerstad, a quiet technician who can fix broken gear with bare hands in sub-zero cold. Every one of them is used to leading. Every one of them knows best. Every one of them believes his way is the right way. And Dyrenforth gives them freedom. The trouble starts even before they leave. Discussions about the route turn into endless debates. Some push for the classic path through the South Col, proven, relatively safe. Others insist on the West Ridge, dangerous, yes, but historic. Dyrenforth listens, nods, refuses to make a final call. We'll decide once we're there, he says. The tension builds. One climber would later recall, we didn't really know who was in charge, Norman, or whoever happened to be shouting the loudest. The team quietly splits into camps. Not officially, but everyone feels it. There are those who want to complete the mission quickly and safely, and those willing to risk everything for something greater. Dyrenforth tries to keep the balance. He forms two assault teams. The first will take the classic route. Their goal, put an American on the summit. The second, we'll see how things go. Maybe the West Ridge, maybe not. But the vagueness of the plan only fuels their unease. One of the climbers writes in his journal, Norman is a good man, but being a good man and being a good leader are not the same thing. On Everest, hesitation can be a death sentence. They don't yet realize how true those words will prove to be. Freedom of choice. It's a beautiful concept, in an office, in a boardroom, in the comfort of a warm house. But up there, where there's barely enough oxygen to think, where every decision might be your last, freedom becomes a burden. Someone has to take responsibility. Someone has to say, we're going this way, we're doing this now. But Dyrenforth stays silent, and the team leaves for Nepal without knowing who will truly lead them to the top. February 1963. The team arrives in Kathmandu, a city alive with noise, the scent of spices, and crowds of curious onlookers. Local papers hail the Great American Expedition. Cameras click, flashbulbs pop, but the climbers barely notice. Their minds are already higher, on the slopes above the clouds. Dyrenforth gathers everyone in a hotel room and spreads a map of Everest across the table. His finger traces the lines of the mountain. The first group goes through the South Col, he says. It's a proven route. Hillary did it 10 years ago. We know every section. Camps are already marked. The Sherpas will set the ladders and ropes. The goal, to place the first American on the summit. Everyone nods. Logical. As safe as anything can be at 28,000 feet. The second group, Dyrenforth continues, then pauses. Will support the main team or explore the possibility of the West Ridge. The room goes still. The West Ridge, two words that sound like both a challenge and a death wish. Everyone knows what it means. A near vertical wall, hanging cornices that could collapse at any moment, stretches with nowhere to anchor a rope, and worst of all, no one has ever made it to the top that way. No data, no experience, no proof that it can even be done. Tom Hornbein studies the map and feels something ignite inside him. He's a doctor by training, but climbing has never been about sport for him. It's philosophy. He's never sought the easy route, only the meaningful one. The South Col is repetition. The West Ridge is discovery. Willy Unzeld sits beside him, quiet but unmistakably intrigued. He's the kind of man who doesn't shy from risk. He feeds on it. For him, a challenge isn't an obstacle, it's oxygen. After the meeting, the two stay behind. Hornbein is the first to say what both are thinking. We're going there. Unzeld grins. Of course we are. They both understand. Officially, they're part of the support team, but unofficially, they have a chance to do something no one ever has, to carve a new line up the mountain, to create history, not repeat it. The problem is, no one knows if it's even possible. On the maps, the West Ridge is drawn in dotted lines. Survey teams in the 50s had looked at it from a distance and shaken their heads. Too steep, too dangerous, too unpredictable. One British climber wrote in his report, "The West Ridge is a route for suicides, not for sane men." But Hornbein and Unzeld don't see themselves as reckless. They see themselves as pioneers. A plan begins to take shape. While the first group ascends via the traditional route, the second will move in parallel, exploring the West Ridge. If it proves impossible, they'll turn back and join the others. But if they find a way, everything could change. Dyrenforth doesn't forbid it. He gives his cautious approval. Safety comes first, he reminds them. If it looks too dangerous, you turn around. Hornbein nods, but deep down, he already knows. They won't turn back. The expedition starts its final preparations. Tons of gear are loaded onto yaks. Sherpas check ropes, tents, oxygen tanks. Base camp rises at the foot of the Khumbu Icefall, a place where Everest shows its true nature for the first time. And while one team focuses on the safe, well-trodden route, two men stand apart, staring at the mountain's western face. They don't see danger. They see possibility. May 1st, 1963. 6 in the morning. Two figures move slowly across a steep, frozen slope at 28,500 feet. James Whitaker, broad-shouldered, steady, an American from Seattle. Beside him, Nawang Gombu, a Sherpa, nephew of the legendary Tenzing Norgay. Every step feels like a battle. The air is so thin that their lungs burn after just 3 breaths. They're climbing the South Col route, the same path Hillary took 10 years earlier. Familiar, reliable, proven. By 12:30, they stand on the summit. Whitaker pulls an American flag from his pack, unfurls it in the wind. Red and white stripes whip against the sky above the roof of the world. Gombu smiles behind his oxygen mask. They embrace. Pose for a photograph. The radio crackles to life. Contact with base camp. We're on the summit. Repeat, we're on the summit. Down below, the camp erupts. Shouts, laughter, hugs, applause. An American has reached the top of Everest. Mission accomplished. A national triumph. But there's one detail that few people notice in that moment. Norman Dyrenforth was climbing with them. He had been only a few yards behind Whitaker and Gombu, less than 100 meters away from the very top of the world. 10 minutes of walking in normal air. Maybe half an hour up here. And then he stops. He looks up at the 2 men ahead, pauses, and makes a choice. He turns back. Later, he explains, "My job was to get the team to the summit, not to stand there myself. A noble gesture, or a lifetime of regret. No one will ever really know." That night, base camp celebrates. Reporters hammer out their stories. Photographers hunch over film canisters. National Geographic prepares its headline, "The Great American Victory." Officially, the expedition is over. The goal achieved. Time to pack up, go home, heroes. But among the climbers, a strange silence lingers. Tom Hornbein sits outside his tent, staring at the mountain's western face. Willy Unzeld sharpens his crampons beside him. the steel teeth that bite into ice. Barry Bishop checks his cameras. Lute Jerstad adjusts the oxygen tanks. They're happy for Whitaker, truly happy. But inside, a question grows. Is that it? The South Col, safe, established, already conquered. Yes, it's historic. Yes, it matters for the country. But for mountaineers, it's not discovery. It's repetition. Hornbein writes in his journal, "We've worked so hard to climb a route that's already been climbed. We've proven we can repeat success, but not that we can go beyond it." Unseld is blunter. Why did we come here? To check a box, plant a flag, and go home? Around them, the Himalayas stretch into the night. Everest looms above, indifferent to human ambition. The West Ridge stares back, silent, untouched. No one has ever made it to the top that way. No one knows if it's even possible. And in that stillness after the triumph, a new idea begins to take shape. Not official, not approved, dangerous, maybe even suicidal. But for men like them, it's the only idea that makes sense, because they don't know how to stop. Evening after the victory, the camp grows quiet, the celebration fades, replaced by exhaustion. Most of the climbers are already thinking about the descent, about home, about warmth, about sleep. Tom Hornbein and Willy Unsold sit apart by the fire. Hornbein unfolds a worn map of Everest, its edges frayed from wind and use. He traces the lines of the mountain with his finger, stopping on the western side, the part where the map seems to dissolve into uncertainty. Dotted lines, question marks, sections marked unexplored. "Look," he says quietly, "here's the couloir, then the ridge. Beyond that, no one knows." Unsold squints at the map under the flickering lantern light. Even from a glance, it's clear this route is nothing like the others. The line rises almost straight up. No marked camps, no fixed ropes, just naked rock and ice. "Why hasn't anyone tried?" Ansfold asks, though the answer is obvious. "Because it's insane," Hornbein replies with a faint smile. They both know they're talking about something far beyond reason. The West Ridge isn't just a tough route, it's a wall where every meter could be your last. There's no quick way down if the weather turns. One mistake, and you fall 1,000 meters into nothing. British expeditions looked at that ridge back in the 1950s and didn't even bother trying. The Swiss called it the Wall of Death. Even the Sherpas, who know Everest better than anyone, just shook their heads when asked about the western route. But Hornbein and Ansfold aren't looking for the easy way out. Hornbein is a doctor, the kind of man who searches for answers where others see dead ends. To him, climbing isn't about conquering a mountain. It's about exploring limits, not of the mountain, but of the human spirit. He's always asked himself, how far can I go before I break? Ansfold is different, direct, tough, not one for philosophy. He simply doesn't know how to back down. For him, challenge isn't a choice, it's a necessity. If there's a route no one's taken, someone has to take it. Why not him? "We could try," Hornbein says quietly. Ansfold looks at him for a long moment, then nods. "Yeah, we could." It's not a decision made in the heat of emotion. They both know what's ahead, that the odds are close to zero, that even if they make it to the top, the descent will be worse. They know people will call them reckless, maybe even selfish, risking everything for glory. But it's not about glory. Later, Hornbein will write in his memoirs, "I didn't want to repeat what others had done. I wanted to know if a human being could do something that seemed impossible. Not for a flag, not for a country, for myself." Ansfold will put it more simply. "We didn't come here for the easy way. If you want easy, stay home." They fold the map, stare into the darkness, where the outline of the western wall barely shows. Somewhere out there, beyond thousands of meters of rock and ice, lies a line no one has ever crossed. And they decide to be the first, not because it makes sense, but because they can't not try. At dawn, Hornbein and Ansfold walk into Norman Dyrenforth's tent. They're not asking permission. They're telling him. "We're going for the West Ridge." Dyrenforth looks up from his papers, silent for a long moment. Then he shakes his head. "The mission's done. An American reached the summit. Why risk more?" Ansfold steps closer, his voice steady, unshaken. "Because we didn't come here to tick a box. We came to see what we're capable of." Dyrenforth exhales. He understands. He used to be like them 20 years ago. But now, he's the leader. Responsibility is his burden. Every life in this expedition weighs on him. The West Ridge is suicide, he says quietly. No one knows what's up there. No data, no experience. One storm, and you're dead. Hornbane tries to reason with him. He spreads out the map, points to possible campsites, explains their timing, their oxygen reserves, their gear. On paper, it almost makes sense. Dyrenfurth listens, but his mind's made up. I can't let you go. It's too dangerous. And then Ansfold says the words that change everything. You're scared. The silence in the tent is heavy. Dyrenfurth slowly turns toward him, his face calm, but his eyes hard. I'm responsible for people's lives. That's not fear. That's common sense. Ansfold doesn't back down. Common sense? We climbed Everest the safe way. And what did that prove? That we can follow someone else's trail? You brought us here to stay on the beaten path. Voices rise. Other climbers gather outside, listening through the thin fabric of the tent. Every word carries. Dyrenfurth tries to stay calm, but inside, he's boiling. They've just called him a coward. Him, a man who's spent more years in the mountains than some of them have been alive. You're chasing fame, he says sharply. What we've achieved isn't enough for you. You want your names in the papers. Hornbane shakes his head. It's not about fame, it's about what we can do. Or do you think we can't? The team begins to split. Some side with Dyrenfurth. Why risk lives when the goal's already been reached? Others back Hornbine and Ansfold. If not now, then when? Barry Bishop, the photographer who's been preparing for his own summit attempt all week, steps forward. I'm going with them. The West Ridge is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Lute Gjerstad, the quiet technician, nods. Count me in. Dyrenfurth realizes he's losing control, his gentle leadership, his philosophy of freedom and trust. It's all turning against him now. He gave them autonomy, and they're using it to push beyond every limit. Ansfold meets his gaze and says the line that will echo through the expedition for years to come. Everest or death, Norman. There's no third option. The words hang in the air. Not a threat, not bravado, just truth. They're ready to risk everything for what they believe in. Dyrenfurth clenches his jaw. He knows that if he forbids them, they might go anyway. And if he allows it, their lives, and their possible deaths, will be on him. Finally, he nods, slowly, heavily. Go, but the responsibility is yours. It's May 5th, 1963. 4 men stand at the base of the western wall. Hornbine, Ansfold, Bishop, and Gjerstad. Before them rises a narrow, icy chute that tilts upward at nearly 70 degrees. No more than 15 meters wide, its sides are sheer ice and bare rock. It's a couloir, a natural gash carved into the body of the mountain. Later, it will bear Hornbine's name, but right now, it has no name, only danger etched into every meter of its surface. Hornbine looks up. Snow dust whirls off the ridge above, whipped by the wind. Somewhere high up, a block of ice collapses with a dull crack, followed by echo, then silence. Let's begin, he says. The first steps feel routine. Crampons bite into the ice. Axes hold firm. The rope team moves as one, every man in rhythm. But within an hour, the altitude starts pressing down. At roughly 7,300 meters, lungs work twice as hard. The heart pounds as if it's trying to break free. Every breath delivers less oxygen than the body needs. Even standing still feels like suffocation. Ansfold is the first to switch on his oxygen. He fits the mask, inhales, and feels his mind clear. Up here, oxygen isn't a boost, it's survival. Without it, the body slowly dies. They climb 100 meters, then 200, each meter harder than the last. The couloir narrows. The walls close in so tight that their packs scrape against the ice. They have to move sideways, pressed flat against the mountain. By evening, they reach a small ledge, barely wide enough for a tent. They pitch camp, hammering stakes into frozen ground. The tent flaps wildly in the wind like a sail. Inside, it's 20 degrees below zero. Outside, 35 below. Night becomes a test of endurance. Sleeping at 8,000 meters isn't really sleep. It's slipping in and out of fragments of unconsciousness. The brain shuts down for minutes at a time, then jolts you awake when your breathing slows too much. You wake up gasping, heart racing, clawing for the oxygen mask. You take a few desperate breaths, calm yourself, then try again, hoping for a few moments of rest before the next wave of thin air drags you back. Hornbane lies in his sleeping bag, listening to Ansfold breathe beside him. uneven, broken. It's called apnea, moments when the body simply forgets to breathe. At this altitude, it happens to everyone. The body shuts down, and if you don't wake up in time, you don't wake up at all. By morning, they crawl out of the tent more exhausted than when they went in. But there's no stopping. Up, always up. The second day is worse. The couloir grows steeper. The ice hardens into frozen rock, glazed with a thin crust. Crampons slip. Ice axes fail to bite on the first swing. Every step takes 3 tries. Bishop still finds the strength to pull out his camera. Even here, on the edge of collapse, he keeps shooting. The walls, his partners, the sky above them. Impossibly blue, almost black at this height. Jerstad works in silence, checking the ropes. His hands tremble, not from fear, but from cold and exhaustion. Still, he ties each knot with precision. Every loop has to be perfect. One mistake, and the whole team falls. By evening, they're at 7,900 meters. They set up the second camp, a small shelf just wide enough to hold the tent. 4 grown men lie shoulder to shoulder inside, wrapped in down and silence, trying to stay warm. May 16th, 3 in the morning. The wind shifts. At first it's a whisper, a thin hiss between the rocks, then louder, louder still. Within minutes, it's not wind anymore. It's a roar. The tents begin to shake as if giant hands are trying to tear them off the mountain. Hornbein wakes with a jolt. The fabric slaps against his face. One of the poles has snapped. The tent has folded in half. Ansfold's already up, holding the structure with both arms. Outside, the storm explodes. On Everest, wind isn't what you know from the valleys below. Up here, it hits 200 kilometers an hour, the speed of a race car. Imagine a wall of air slamming into you at the velocity of a Ferrari, while you're trying to hold up a few square meters of fabric and aluminum rods. The tent rips apart, not gradually, instantly. 1 second it's there, the next it's gone, torn into the black void. The wind crashes in, lifting sleeping bags, hurling packs into the dark. Hornbein grabs a rope. It's ripped from his hands. Ansfold shouts something, but the storm swallows his voice. Farther down the slope, at 7,600 meters, there's an intermediate camp. Barry Corbett and a Sherpa named Tashi Tenzing are there, preparing gear for the next push. Their tent stands on a narrow ledge, anchored with 6 stakes. The storm hits them at 4 a.m. The first gust pulls out 2 stakes. The tent tilts. Corbett grabs the wall, trying to hold it. Tashi yells into the radio, calling for help. But the antenna's gone, torn away by the wind. The second gust takes 3 more. The tent flips. Corbett and Tashi are trapped inside, tangled in the broken frame and folds of fabric. They try to crawl out, but the wind presses everything down with terrifying force. Breathing becomes impossible. The fabric clings to their faces, sealing out the air. Tashi panics. He thrashes, tearing at the tent with his hands. Corbett shouts at him to stop, to calm down. But fear is contagious. They're buried alive in layers of nylon and snow, nearly 8 kilometers above the earth. Hornbein and Ansfold fight their way toward them through the storm. Every step is a battle. The wind knocks them down. Snow pellets sting their faces like 1,000 needles. Visibility, barely a meter. They find the wreckage. Corbett and Tashi are alive, barely. The team drags them out, hauls them higher to a slightly safer spot. But the damage is done. The gear is gone. The tents are shredded. Half the oxygen cylinders have vanished into the storm. When morning comes, the wind finally eases. The climbers gather and take stock of what's left. 3 tents destroyed, 5 oxygen bottles gone, most of the food scattered or lost, several ropes damaged. Out of 8 planned anchor points, only 3 remain intact. Dyrenfurth's voice crackles through the radio. "Come back. It's too dangerous. You've lost half your equipment." Hornbein looks at Ansfold, then at Bishop, then at Jerstad. No one speaks, but their eyes say it all. We're not turning back. Ansfold picks up the radio. "Norman, the way down is as dangerous as the way up. The storm wiped out the anchors. The couloir's not safe for descent." It's true, and Dyrenfurth knows it. There's no way back now. Their only path is forward, to the summit and down the far side. The West Ridge is no longer a route. It's a trap, with one way out, through the highest point on Earth. After the storm, they lose 2 full days just trying to recover. They fix what they can, gather scattered gear, recount their oxygen bottles, calculate how many days are left before the end of May. After that, the monsoon will seal Everest off, and no one will climb again until next year. Hornbein spreads the map across the shredded fabric of a tent. Here's the plan, he says. We set our final camp at 8,700 meters. From there, a direct push to the summit, then down the southeast ridge. Ansfold narrows his eyes. 8,700? That's the death zone. No one's ever spent a night that high. Exactly, Hornbein nods, because everyone thought it couldn't be done. But we don't have a choice. If we camp lower, we won't reach the summit before dark. The death zone, above 8,000 meters, the human body begins to die, not weaken, die. Cells break down. The brain swells. The lungs fill with fluid. Every hour up there cuts days off your life. Spending a night at 8,700 means 8, maybe 10 hours. Right on the edge of what a body can survive. But there's no other way. Dyron Firth listens over the radio. There's a long silence, then a sigh. You're breaking every safety rule we've ever written. Hornbein waits. But you're right, Dyron Firth says quietly. You're already there. There's no way back. Do what you have to do. Just come home. Permission granted. Now all that's left is to make it. May 21st, 4 in the morning, still dark. The stars above look close enough to touch, but the cold makes every breath feel like broken glass. Hornbein and Ansfold prepare for the final push. They pull on their last layers of clothing, check their oxygen, 2 tanks each. It should be enough for the climb and the first part of the descent. Should be. The Sherpas stand nearby. They won't go higher. There are no fixed ropes, no known routes on the West Ridge. Up here, every step is an unknown. This is not their war. One of them, an older man named Ong Dawa, walks up to Hornbein. He studies him for a long moment, then shakes his head. You won't come back. Hornbein tries to smile. I will, I promise. Ong Dawa doesn't believe him. He's seen too many men vanish into this mountain and never return. Everest doesn't forgive those who go too far. Ansfold checks the ropes one last time. His fingers barely move. The cold has numbed them to stone. He knows what it means. If something goes wrong up there, no one can help. No one can climb to 8,700 meters for a rescue. They'll either make it or stay there forever. Hornbein takes a small photograph from his pocket. His wife, his children. He looks at it for a few seconds, then turns to Ong Dawa. If I don't come back, give this to her. Tell her I made it. Ong Dawa takes the photo and nods, wordless. Hornbein and Ansfold pull on their oxygen masks, switch on their headlamps, take the first step into the dark. Ahead of them, 1,000 meters of vertical ice, walls with no anchors, sections where one wrong move means a fall of a full kilometer. Temperatures at -30, winds strong enough to tear a man from the rock, and air so thin it barely exists. They move slowly. Step, breath, another step, another breath. The world narrows to that rhythm. Nothing else matters now. Just the next step. Just the next breath. Noon, May 22nd. Altitude, 8,500 meters. Hornbein stops and looks ahead. A wall rises in front of him, smooth, nearly vertical. No cracks for a hold, no ledge for a rope. He turns. Ansfold stands 10 meters behind, hunched over his axe, gasping. Even through the oxygen mask, the sound is heavy, labored. This isn't the route, Hornbein shouts over the wind. Ansfold lifts his head, glances at the wall, then at the map flapping wildly in his hands. It's useless. Everything looks the same here. Ice, rock, sky, no landmarks, no path. They're lost. Lost in the death zone, where a single mistake can mean the end. Hornbein pulls out the radio. The signal is weak, static, crackles, fragments of words cutting in and out. Base, we're at, wall, routes gone. How do we proceed? Dyron Firth's voice bursts through the noise, strained and broken. Tom, turn back. Too dangerous. Time's running out. Hornbein glances at his watch. 12:30. Maybe 5, 6 hours of daylight left. The summit must be close. He can feel it. But where exactly? Ansfold comes closer, points left. A faint ridge jutting from the horizon. Maybe it's the crest. Maybe it's the way. We go there, he says. That's the wrong direction, Hornbein shouts. We'll lose an hour, maybe 2. Or we'll find the way. The radio crackles again, Dyrenfirth's voice, sharper now. Tom, Willie, do you hear me? Turn around, now, while there's still light to descend. Hornbein tightens his grip on the radio. He knows Dyrenfirth's right. Logic says, turn back. Every minute spent searching costs them strength, and maybe their lives, but something deep inside refuses to stop. Norman, he says slowly, we've come too far to quit 100 meters from the top. You don't know how far it is. Maybe 100, maybe 1,000. Ansfold takes the radio from Hornbein's hands. Norman, we're moving left, traversing. We'll search for a route. If we find nothing in an hour, we turn back. Silence. Dyrenfirth knows it's useless to argue. They won't listen. Or maybe they can't. All right, he says finally. 1 hour, no more. They begin the traverse, moving sideways across the slope. It makes no sense. The summit's above them, and they're going sideways. But sometimes, on a mountain, the straight line isn't the way. Sometimes you have to step back to move forward. The slope steepens. Hornbein drives his axe into the ice, takes a step, drives it again. Every move feels like dragging through water. His legs are lead, his brain fogs, starved of oxygen. Ansfold follows behind. The rope between them stays taut, a lifeline in theory. In reality, up here, one man can't hold another, but the rope offers the illusion of safety. And sometimes that illusion is enough to keep going. Half an hour passes. Nothing. Just the same endless wall of ice stretching left and up. An hour. They should turn back. They promised. But up ahead, a small ridge, maybe a break in the slope. Maybe a path. Hornbein looks at Ansfold, says nothing. Just looks. Ansfold nods. They keep climbing. Promise broken. Radio silent. Base camp gone below the clouds. Ahead, the unknown. Behind, the point of no return. And now, only one question remains. What waits beyond that ridge? The way to the summit, or their final mistake? 6 in the evening, May 22nd. Hornbein takes one last step and realizes there's nowhere higher to go. He's standing on the summit of Everest, 8,848 meters above sea level, the roof of the world, the line where Earth meets sky. But there's no rush of victory, just exhaustion, deep, heavy, bone deep. Ansfold climbs up beside him, stops. They don't speak. Their breath rasps through the oxygen masks. The wind howls so fiercely that words would be meaningless anyway. Hornbein looks around. Infinity in every direction. Mountains below look like toys. Clouds drift far beneath their feet. The sun sinks, painting the horizon in blood red and gold. Beautiful, almost unreal. But beauty brings no comfort. It terrifies. Because they both know the summit isn't the end. It's only halfway. The easy half. Most climbers don't die on the way up. They die on the way down, when the body is empty and the mind starts to fade. Hornbein pulls the radio again. Static. Cracks. Then, through the noise, Dyrenfirth's voice, trembling. Tom, is that you? Norman, we're on the summit. Silence. Then an eruption of sound from below. Cheers, shouting, relief. Joy flooding through the static. But up here, only silence. Hornbein looks down, toward the west ridge, swallowed in twilight. Descending that way is impossible now. They knew this would happen. They planned to go down the other side, the southeast ridge, the same route Jim Whittaker had used to climb just weeks before. Norman, we've got tracks, heading down the southeast ridge. Got it. Listen, Bishop and Jerstad should be down there somewhere. They left early this morning. Look for them. It's safer to go down together. Hornbein tucks the radio away and looks at Unsold. He nods. Time to move. But before taking that first step down, Hornbein turns around. One last look at the summit. No flag, no plaque. Nothing left behind. Only wind and snow. Snow that will bury their footprints within the hour. Unsold is thinking the same thing. They've climbed a route no one had ever taken before. Proved that a person can do the impossible. But who will ever know? Who will believe them? No photos, the camera froze solid, no witnesses, just the two of them, and a mountain that doesn't care. The descent begins at dusk. The first few meters feel easy. Tracks in the snow, Bishop and Jerstad really did pass this way in the morning. That's reassuring. It means they're on the right path. but the sun drops fast, too fast. Within 20 minutes, dusk turns to darkness. Not the kind you know from a city night, a total, absolute black. They have headlamps, but the cold is killing the batteries. The light flickers, weak, trembling. Hornbein leads, swings his ice axe into the slope, tests a foothold, steps down, repeats. Each move takes a minute, maybe two. Time stops mattering. Unsold follows in silence. He's so exhausted his thoughts barely form. Just the same rhythm. Step, breathe, step, breathe. Somewhere below, Bishop and Jerstad are also descending. They don't know Hornbein, and Unsold are above them. And the two up here don't know where to look for them. Two men moving down into the dark, not knowing what lies ahead. Two others coming from below, unaware anyone's coming their way. Between them, 1,000 meters of night slope, where any step could be the last. 9 in the evening. Hornbein stops. His lamp flickers and dies. He smacks it, nothing. Battery's gone. Unsold clicks his on, a dim yellow glow. A few more minutes, maybe half an hour, then it'll die too. The tracks are gone, Hornbein says. Unsold shines his light downward, smooth snow. Untouched, no marks at all. They've lost the route, or the winds erased it, or maybe they were never on the right one. Darkness all around, no horizon, no ground, just an endless black void. One wrong step and you fall. Maybe 100 meters, maybe 1,000. You'll find out only after you stop feeling anything at all. Hornbein tries to orient himself. Pulls out a compass. The needle shakes but points south. That's where they need to go. But what's south? A slope? A cliff? No one knows. Unsold removes his oxygen mask. The tank's empty. He tosses it into the dark. The clatter of metal echoes far below. Hornbein checks his own. Almost empty too. 5 minutes left, maybe less. No light, no oxygen, no bearings. Call out, Hornbein says. Unsold takes a deep breath and shouts into the dark. Hey, anybody out there? Echo, wind, silence, again. Is anyone there? Nothing. Hornbein pulls out a whistle, metal mountaineering issue, 3 short blasts. Pause, 3 long, pause, 3 short. SOS. The universal call for help. They wait. Seconds stretch like hours. Nothing. And then a reply. Faint, almost lost in the wind. 3 whistles, then 3 more. Someone's there. Hornbein yells with all he's got. We're here! Where are you? A voice from the dark, distant, broken by the wind. Here! Don't move! It's Barry Bishop. He and Lute Jerstad had climbed that morning, reached the summit around 3 in the afternoon, and started their descent. But the night caught them too. They'd lost the route, lost their oxygen, lost hope. Bishop flashes his light upward, a weak beam cutting through the void. Hornbein sees it, starts moving toward it, drawn like a moth to a flame. Every step is a gamble. The snow gives way underfoot. Rocks shift, but there's no choice. That tiny light is the only thing left to follow. 20 minutes later, they find each other. 4 men on the slopes of Everest, 8,400 meters above sea level. Total darkness, no oxygen, no gear to last the night. Bishop sits on a rock, arms wrapped around his knees. His face is pale, his lips blue. Jerstad lies curled up beside him. They're freezing. Hornbein kneels down next to them. Unsold follows. Got any oxygen? Bishop asks. Hornbein shakes his head. Out. So are we. The 4 of them look at one another, and they know. This is the end. Going down in the dark is suicide. Staying means freezing to death. The temperature is 27 degrees below zero. No tent, no sleeping bags, no heat. At this altitude, no one survives a night in the open. It's a fact proven by dozens of expeditions. The body just shuts down. First the fingers, then the hands and feet, then the mind, then the heart. Jerstad whispers something. Hornbein leans closer. What? We're dead. We just don't know it yet. Unsold looks at him, then at the others, then out into the dark, and says the only thing that makes sense. Then we die together. 10 at night. The 4 of them huddle on a narrow ledge, press shoulder to shoulder. The wind pounds their backs. 27 below. No tent. No sleeping bags. No fire. This isn't camping. It's waiting. Hornbein checks his last oxygen tank. The gauge reads 0. Unsold's is the same. Bishop opens his. There's still a little left, maybe an hour, maybe two. We share, he says. They pass the mask around. Each man takes 3 breaths, then hands it on. 3 breaths, and your brain wakes up again. Thoughts clear, the body remembers how to move, but within a minute, the fog returns. Jerstad pulls off his gloves, looks at his fingers. They're white, not pink, not red, white like wax. He tries to bend them. Nothing. No feeling, no pain. That's bad. Pain means life. No pain means frostbite. He puts the gloves back on, says nothing. There's no point talking about it now. Bishop thinks of his wife, his kids. He promised he'd come back, promised this would be the last expedition. After this, home, family, a warm bed, hot coffee in the morning, the simple things you never think about until they're gone. Hornbein stares into the dark. Somewhere far below, people are sleeping in warm tents, drinking tea, talking around campfires, unaware that 4 of their friends are up here, on the edge of the world, slowly freezing to death. Unsold starts to shiver, at first just a tremor, then harder. It's called thermogenesis, the body's last attempt to create heat by making the muscles shake, but up here, it barely works. No energy, no oxygen, the shaking only burns through what's left. Keep moving, Hornbein says. Don't fall asleep. Unsold nods, stands, stomps his feet, waves his arms, sits again. 5 minutes later, he does it all over. Fall asleep here, and you don't wake up. Midnight. The last tank is empty. Only thin air now, almost nothing to breathe. Every inhale is shallow. The lungs burn. Bishop starts hallucinating. Sees people who aren't there, hears voices, talks to someone invisible. Hypoxia, oxygen starvation. First come the visions, then unconsciousness, then the end. Hornbein grabs his shoulder. Barry, look at me. You're here, on Everest. We're gonna make it. Bishop focuses, nods. But within minutes, he's drifting again. 1 in the morning, 2, 3. Time loses meaning. There's only the cold and the dark, and a single thought repeating over and over, just a little longer. Hold on. The sun will rise, it'll get warmer. We can go down. 4 a.m. The sky begins to pale. Just a faint gray line on the horizon at first, then brighter. The stars fade, one by one. 5 a.m. The first rays of sunlight touch the summit. Light, warmth, life. Hornbein tries to stand. His legs won't obey. He looks down, his boots are coated in ice. He pulls off a glove, touches his toes through the fabric. Nothing, no feeling. Unsold gets up too, wobbles, grabs a rock to steady himself. Jerstad takes off his boots, looks at his feet. His toes are black. All 10. Bishop doesn't take his off. He knows what he'd see, and he knows better than to look now. They survived, but this isn't victory. It's the price. The price they'll pay later when the doctors say the word amputation. No other choice. Sometimes survival is more terrifying than death itself. 6 in the morning, May 23rd. The 4 of them begin their descent. Every step is agony. Their legs won't bend. Their hands barely grip the ice axes. But stopping isn't an option. Down there, there's warmth. Down there, there's oxygen. Down there, there's life. The descent turns into an endless nightmare. Hornbein leads the way, tests every foothold, hammers in protection. Waves to the others, it's safe, then keeps moving. Down and down, meter by meter, hour by hour. Time stretches until it stops meaning anything. Unsold collapses, just sinks to his knees in the middle of the slope. Hornbein turns, sees him sitting still, staring into nothing. He climbs back, shakes his shoulder. Willie, get up. Unsold looks at him with empty eyes. I can't. You can, just a little longer. Only a few more hours. Unsold shakes his head, but stands. Because the alternative is to stay there forever. They descend for 40 hours. 40 hours of non-stop movement down the mountain. No sleep, almost no water. Their bodies running on reserves that, by every law of physiology, should no longer exist. Evening of May 24th. They reach base camp. People run out to meet them, shouting, waving. But when they see their faces, the noise dies. Hornbein and Unsold look like ghosts, skin gray, eyes sunken, lips cracked and blue. Bishop and Jerstad lean on each other, each step so painful it makes you want to scream. Darren Firth pulls them into an embrace, says nothing. There's nothing to say. The expedition doctor checks them, takes off their boots, looks at their feet. His face hardens. This is severe frostbite. You need immediate hospitalization. They nod. They already know. A week later, in a hospital in Kathmandu, the verdict comes. Willy Unzeld loses 9 fingers, all his toes and 1 on his hand. Barry Bishop, all 10 toes. Lute Gjerstad, 7. Tom Hornbein, 4. The surgeries take hours. The doctors cut away dead tissue, save what can be saved. But much is already gone. Unsold lies in his hospital bed, staring at the bandage stumps. He knows what's under those wrappings, knows those toes are gone forever. He asks himself, was it worth it? And answers, yes. Because they did the impossible. They climbed a route thought to be suicidal. They proved that humans can go beyond what seems possible. The fingers, the toes, that's the price. A steep one. But they knew what they were risking. Since 1963, Everest's West Ridge has remained one of the most dangerous routes on Earth. In the 60 years since the American expedition, dozens have tried to repeat it. Most failed. Some never came back. The mountain forgives nothing. It doesn't forgive mistakes. It doesn't forgive weakness. It doesn't even forgive those who reach the top. Everest always takes its share. From some, their lives. From others, their fingers. From others still, their sanity. Hornbein would later write in his memoir, "We thought we were climbing the mountain, but in truth, the mountain was climbing us. And we survived not because we were stronger, but because it led us." 1963, the American Everest expedition, the first ascent of the West Ridge. 4 men who paid for it with pieces of themselves. They came back as heroes, but every morning when they put on their shoes, they remember that night, 8,400 meters up, the darkness, the cold, and the thought that still lingers. We might not have made it back, but they did, and that's all that matters.